again, I'm working on researching with the county treasurer whether we can use the fund that she uses and maybe get away from some of these banks. As far as the checking account, Wells Fargo, there's $487,402.74. The only deposit kind of happened late last month that we haven't seen in a while, and that was the most current, or actually early April 1st, Licking Hole Creek Brewery, so they're back on track, and hopefully they'll stay that way. There have been no new checks issued. Lisa, do we have a payment we need to make to for the insurance?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
That probably won't be till June.
Okay. Leaving a total balance of $682,341.65. Any questions?
Other than the Claire Ryan bill that you put out, Lisa?
No, we just need to approve that. Nothing else.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any questions? All right. We'll move on to scheduled matters. Economic Development Authority. Bills to be paid? None?
No, we do have one bill.
We do have
And we're clear about it.
That's the Blue Claire.
And Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the payment of the Claire Ryan bill.
Second?
I would say.
Okay.
She seconded it.
I did.
Just for clarification, that is for the time spent on the forbearance agreement that was drafted.
They document pretty well their hours and their stuff.
They do.
Okay. We need a point of order for that.
No,
I just
sir.
need just all ayes. I've got it first and
Vote.
second.
Ayes?
Yeah. Aye.
Aye. Nays? Okay, thank you. New business, Economic Development Director, Matthew.
Well, everybody's been waiting to go to sleep last night in anticipation for my presentation. So the financial request for new business, obviously you saw the email that went out. They have been speaking with them earlier today. We're discussing just kind of the timing of the request, and obviously they're going before the Board of Supervisors for a rezoning and a conditional use permit request. So felt that the timing wise would be better to let that kind of work itself through before they came to EDA asking for a request. So timing wise should be back before you next month. Again, I circulated, I guess it was yesterday, their application and their business plan. I also have personal tax returns and other financial information that I didn't want to circulate, but I do have it if anybody wants that. So they'll be prepared with a presentation when the time comes and be here to answer questions. So again, I think it's going to probably be next month, just based on schedules.
Which I think is a better layout anyhow, because I was kind of struggling to go ahead and approve before the,
Sure.
you know, they knew whether they were getting everything lined up from zoning and all that. The other issue, I think we all look at this and come up with our list of questions, and what might, if I were them, what I'd like to know is what those questions are, so I can come prepared to answer them. So to the extent we can put together most of those questions, and so we ought to kind of set a date with which everybody looks through that and gets those to you, so that you can send it on to them.
Okay.
And I don't know what we want to agree to there, but
So in the coming days, I should be receiving a presentation from them as well. Perhaps I could receive that, circulate that. That may answer some questions. If not, whatever comes, that'll be the final, I guess, deliverable that I would have from them. At that point, formulate questions and circulate them back. So I would say maybe within the next 2 weeks, any questions you may have.
Just suggest that I think one of the things that I hope, and we've been hoping once we got to the strategic plan would come out of it, that we could collectively, both the county and in concert with the EDA, ultimately work towards joint mission is incentivizing restaurant development in Gibson County, what tools do we have, which could be a small loan program? If that needle is not restaurants in the county, and it's some other prospect or sector, then we try to align your capacities with some of the county capacities to move a collective needle. And so I do think that there's, right now, the process is sort of not necessarily, there's not a clear rule book or playing field for anyone as it relates to coming to the EDA to hit you up for a loan. This, so right now, if you know someone on the EDA or know an EDA exists, you may have an outlet to come ask for some funding for a low interest loan. There's no parameters on the amount that loan could be. There's no parameters on, job creation, dollar investment, all those kinds of things. And I think Matthew is already started on some of the process for us to help frame some of the dialogues for you. So some of the questions you may have may be something we actually want addressed in a format before an application gets to you, and then does it hit a criteria or not? And you could also say, no, we just want to be an open door and allow this to occur regardless of sector because we believe in small business development. There still should probably be a framework from a budgetary standpoint. Annually, we're going to invest this much, up to this much, and then once it's a first come, first serve, or you open windows at certain times. I do think that there is some merit in a low interest loan program. I do think from a long term, as the EDA currently doesn't have a recurring revenue source, and admittedly a loan program could be a recurring revenue source, you need to be somewhat cognizant of what resources you have and how they play out over the long term. And so I think one of the things that we're hoping is a deliverable out of the strategic planning process that we do together is what are those core focus areas, and then you can come back and look at your tools and apply them sort of accordingly. Just food for thought. I shared with you now. You have an applicant that's in the process, and you can keep working them through the process. But I think that our hope is, we get through the strategic planning process, create a framework, create a structure. 12 months from now, this should be a different dialogue. Someone knows on the front end whether they're likely to be considered or not. It also tells your applicant, so do I waste my time going here or not? And would I typically qualify? So you can look at it from different ends of the spectrum, and I get that. But I think those are just more fundamental kind of questions that we have to wrestle with.
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
I completely concur. And one of the fundamental things is we have determined ourselves our own criteria. We talked about that on several occasions. What criteria we use, and do we go, let's say, just after Burry's restaurant business, which restaurants are the most risky business in its entirety. So, we need to set up some type of criteria that I think supports the county, the goals, the needs, the desires, if you will, what's going to happen. And also focus back, I think, to Code of Virginia, because Code of Virginia limits. Yeah, exactly. That limits from what we're doing right now. We're gifted by the fact that we have this money that's come in from non-recurring, let's say anything from the budget that the board of supervisors might set out. But we're in a situation where we have that money, and it's a finite amount of money. And our real goal, if you look at the Code of Virginia, I think where you're going, or part of where you're going, is the fact that we're supposed to do certain things. This is kind of outside that boundary. And we need to align ourselves with the board, with the, let's say, other aspects of the goals of the county, which we haven't really identified. I think we need to talk about that at some level.
I'd like to add, just like not with business sector, but also geographically. I don't know, like, again, getting back to the village concept, if we want to do some sort of business infill in those villages, and regardless of sector, think of small business with like a total employment cap or something like that. I think there are a lot of things we need to think about, not just
So
what, I mean.
I said, one of the things coming out too, the guidelines that I'm working on, if you recall the last meeting I mentioned, obviously the hotel, and we had discussed with them, with the board's approval to offer incentives. So by having a policy in place, it would outline, I guess, the process where the board may say yes, but that ultimately it has to funnel through you. It's just more of a cohesive plan, I guess, if you will. So if it's coming from the board, you are aware, you would know that it meets X, Y, and Z. So it's not having to, I guess, reinvent the wheel with both both authority and board. So to Mr. Badesky's point, that may, again, it'll have a basic, let's say, capital investment number, an employment number, certain criteria where maybe it is geographically located or within certain sectors, or there still can always be a caveat that it's a one-off project that warrants, incentives. It doesn't have to necessarily be the word of God per se, but I think just having something so that, every business in town doesn't come, or if they do want to come, they have the option, obviously. But I think just some sort of guidelines so that we're not each month having to, I guess, evaluate the merits and credibility of new businesses. And maybe.
Well, but you're always gonna do that,
Right.
right? What you're creating is a broad brush, set of criteria that says, this definitely fits, so give this really hard, review. Doesn't mean it's gonna get it, right? As opposed to, this doesn't fit at all what strategically, but if you had gone back 10 years ago with what's going on development-wise in the county right now, you would have never guessed, or you wouldn't have built a strategy around letting hotels in and the residential stuff that's going into West Creek. So I think again, I think it becomes that broad brush with which you go deeper, or you maybe do a little less, but I don't know how you exactly cut stuff off, because something will pop that doesn't fit inside that, and the county doesn't have it, but the county wants it.
Should we also consider guidelines of how much money we're willing to lend?
When I was
I
wondering
mean,
if
if
you
someone
went
comes
to
to us
program
and wants $200,000, I mean,
and perhaps had different criteria for different amounts. Having a micro loan that had a different set of criteria than something that's zero.
And trust me, EDAs do have a relatively broad authority. It's what you choose to exercise. Not everyone has loan programs. Not everyone, and there's also the rebatable tax program and what may qualify for that versus a small interest loan program. So you have some flexibility among the spectrum. And Mr. Hall, I think your point's right. There may be something that just makes sense. It might be something that will spark the bigger development itself, so we want to incentivize that. And it may not fit as clean as a program would have, but general guidelines. And if you're not interested in something that's not brick and mortar, that's a criteria. It has to have some kind of capital investment that has a taxable return. You want something that that they have some proven financials. That this is not just something that they don't think that they either have the backing for that will sustain the business. And so there are criteria, and I think we started some of that work with the attorneys already, and I think there's just a framework. So yes, you do want to give yourself certain flexibility, but I also think that you also want to make sure the applicants, it's just not sort of catch can either. And so someone coming in, we don't know for a fact, this applicant, if their business model might be dependent on whether they get a small interest loan from you or not. That's sort of a scary scenario. But some small businesses, when they're starting up, I mean, their resources are maxed. And how much of that liability do you want to take on for them or with them? So I think it's something that deserves a little more thought and consideration as we move forward, and some framework, because I don't know, this gentleman happened to learn about the program, the breweries had learned about some opportunities to come into us, but what is it that we're trying, if we're trying to support agribusiness in our community, maybe this is a strategy why we would have gone after breweries. If we're trying to support, you stretch that to a restaurant that sells the agri, how far down that chain of reach do you really want to go? And I think they're discussions we should have together. And so I think there was merits in different levels of programming. But I think it's ultimately what needle we trying to move together. And there are tools we as a county can't offer a small loan program. You have the authority to do that if you would so choose. And that's why even the tax incentives come back through you. We don't have the authority to give them back to funds. And so you guys have a fair amount of authority. It's just how do you want to direct that authority to shape what? And I think that's the question we've been wrestling with too, even on the county side. I think the strategic plan is going to give us some more of that framework. But I think even then, we may still have to do some legwork really as you as a board, adopting some of those frameworks that you see meeting that bigger mission of the county.
That's kind of the we and they have started on. The we and your side of this manager is the board as well as county government and that type of thing. And how do we, EDA, board, staff, get together and decide what it is we're going to look for, who we're going to try to attract, what incentives we're going to maintain, and that type of where the entry point is.
The strategic plan, our hope, the outcome of it is going to be some direction that we will share together. And when I say that, is both the board supervisors and the EDA in concert. And then from a tools perspective of how you help achieve, that's more the strategy side. Some of those may be done through the EDA versus the county. Typically, when I was referring today, it was more they, the applicant, to know how to engage and where to engage.
But the essence is we've got to come together as a county and decide what we want to go to a broader picture so that so the EDA is not operating by itself. Basically, we want to make sure that we're doing what it is that the county itself, us included, have decided.
And I think if you look at your colleagues and counterparts throughout the states, the jurisdictions that are working in tandem are seeing much greater success. The ones that don't, and I hate to pick on the city, but you can tell real quickly when the EDA is doing one thing, the city's vision is different, their success is marked. And I think if we can find alignment, knowing that you have different roles and authority, I think we're both going to see better long-term success.
So do we need to schedule a special meeting to get together and discuss what we think that is for us?
I think we're going to be coming up here.
June or July.
We are going to have that meeting with the board.
With the board, right, okay, so we don't have to have our own.
So we have obviously the next May meeting to be on the agenda to discuss, part of the strategic planning process will be once the facilitator is chosen, they'll be reaching out to you individually to kind of, I guess, somewhat get a state of the union in your opinion and kind of get some ideas prior to the joint meeting, just so we're not making introductions necessarily at that meeting. So one of the things I can work with the facilitators to kind of have some questions, I guess, that would help us get to some of these results. But certainly at the May meeting, we can, as a group or even as a group, can have this conversation and talk about, kind of what's, leading up to that meeting with the board, what your thoughts are, what should we be going after, what do those incentive programs look like. And obviously, once the combined groups are together, there'll be a much more robust conversation. But I think, it might be worthwhile to have a conversation prior to the joint meeting.
So, let me just make sure I'm clear. Are you suggesting, similar to, are you suggesting we put this off until we do the strat plan?
I'm sensitive that you have an applicant in the process, right, that has invested their time to come through. I'm not necessarily suggesting you say yes or no, that's your call, but I do think that you do set a little bit of precedent in short order when you approve something in potentially May that may get revised in June, July, August timeframe. And so in some ways, taking a step back is not a bad thing. And I think it actually allows you can use our process as a little bit of an excuse to do that if it was your preference. But if you say you want to at least let them come through the process and be heard, I would understand that as well.
So I'm not necessarily I don't necessarily disagree with that, but what I then would like to understand better is, you know, the exact timing of this. We had some calendars last year. At this point, I don't understand what the calendar is anymore with respect to that. And this is just, I'm speaking for me, that I can think through that, and I can, you know, make my own call as to whether I want to support that or not. Right now, I don't know where to go with that. I personally believe this county doesn't have enough restaurants, and so,
The courthouse
again,
certainly doesn't.
that's my personal belief. And so I think if it was going to be a viable business, and it's a particular type of restaurant that I suspect most of the people in the county would enjoy eating at periodically, then it might be a worthwhile thing to invest some amount of money. I'm not quite sure it's going to be 50,000, but
Let me pose it just some food for thought for you, and step away from it, but I enjoy Mexican myself. You don't get this big fast enough too many restaurants. But you also have to think about an equity equation when you think about creating an incentive program. And so, did Bella Cecilia have the opportunity to come in for a low interest loan? Did the existing Mexican restaurant have an opportunity to come in for a low interest loan? Did the other brick and mortars that are here in the courthouse have that same opportunity? Now, admittedly, life changes, programs change, and those kinds of things. And so I think you do have to think about, as you create a program, are you incentivizing one business at the cost of another? And I think it's a fair question to have to relate in the process. And so, and
No, sorry.
no, I do think when we create incentive programs, you always have that equation of what, from an equity standpoint, what are you doing to another that also has made other investments? And I think, you know, if you're incentivizing something in the courthouse and you're being unfair to Centerville, those are questions we have to evaluate when we create programs.
Well, let's face it, we're in the position of being bankers here. I've some financial experience, but I have banking experience. And the applicants that we're gonna get here are gonna be those businesses that either have been to the banks or are just not going to the banks. So the class of applications that we're gonna get here, in my opinion, will be fairly low, risky. And to your point, John, I agree that, you know, what we're doing, we're being selective, and is that the business of the governmental agency, to be selective, to selecting one particular business or type of business over another.
In fairness, anytime you create an incentive program, it does that to some extent. And so I'm playing devil's advocate as you create policy. You have to look at it through different lenses. And so my point is probably even less about this particular applicant, is more about process. What structure and framework have we put in to run through the process? Right now, that process is someone has learned that you exist, has learned that there's a pot of money they could potentially get a loan from. They don't know how much, so I think risk reward is something to weigh with some of these. Yes, they may be a little bit more risky, but what threshold do we have? We're willing to put up 10,000 for that risk versus 200,000. And so sometimes that makes a difference whether some of these places are going to open or not. So you as a board can decide that. I'm just trying to ask you to think about it in a framework.
Sure. And I would not like to see us have like paralysis through process. I think that would be really unfortunate. If we're looking forward constantly and saying, you know, we haven't helped these people, I mean, we can't start a program without people coming before it. So that would be my worry with that.
I hope that's not what I'm saying to you.
No, I would, working within government and EDA kind of capacity, I can see that happening even in a small town. So that would be my worry, is that we don't do anything because we're so concerned about there being an imbalance
they process with a formal loan and
Right.
also a forbearance now, so we're gearing up to set guidelines
I definitely
and
should.
a process.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
We should have a process.
Right.
And, yeah, we should, I agree with that. I think we should definitely have a process. I just, hope that the process doesn't take precedent over actually accomplishing.
We all have the same thing in mind to make it as speedy and expeditious as we can, you know,
I think one thing to just step in real quick is we're looking at these guidelines, if you will, and maybe not even focusing so much on, you know, investment criteria, job criteria, but it's some sort of formalized return on investment calculation that could at least be run across the board. You know, that's what we have to do for state level projects. And I can say with certainty that a restaurant would not meet the levels of return on investment required for any kind of state incentive. So in the past, our process is really aligned with what qualifies for a state incentive. And that's the projects that we have been involved with to this point have been, minus the Licking Hole loan, have been aligned with state incentives. So again, any kind of low interest loan program obviously is a little bit different than a standard incentive, but some sort of ROI calculation should be in place as at least, if nothing else, as a metric to follow. I don't know what that calculation needs to look like necessarily, but there should be something in there. And again, just using the current applicant as an example, somebody that's a new business, there's really no way to calculate other than sheer best guesstimate. And I just don't know that is necessarily the way you want, you know, I mean, again, it's just hard to quantify what kind of results you're going to get when there's no track record.
Yeah, the Licking Hole came out of nowhere too.
That was not initially, the incentive came after they were open, is when the loan came after they'd already been in business.
But you're just associating our loan from what the state did.
Right.
And basically, we were a precursor, we were ahead of the game at the EDA. But
Exactly.
so that, but otherwise,
Right.
Yeah, okay. Because no matter what we do, we're gonna distort the market somehow, right? And that's kind of maybe a mystery to your point, but that we need to decide where we're gonna do that, right? With what resources and what makes the best sense for the county.
And using the state may not be the best example because their minimum criteria is $5 million of capital investment and 50 jobs. So if you don't meet those, then you pretty much aren't going to get any of the larger incentives.
And I think you're talking about two different programs.
Right.
Completely. So if it is a matter of wanting to do a low interest loan, I'm just suggesting a framework that's clear, understandable, who has an opportunity to apply, what it is you're trying to incentivize. You know, we may agree that restaurants need to be incentivized, but you may say, no, small office needs to be incentivized, or you may say a tech company needs to be incentivized, or you may say pharmaceuticals need to be. Okay, that's great. At the end of the day, $450,000 only goes so far. And so where do you put your powder? And or you also, I mean, have the flexibility of saying, you know what, each year we're going to do at least no more than a $10,000 grant, up to $30,000. We're going to budget for it. We're going to do a low interest loan, and the return on that investment is our low interest. And that's just a program we want to offer. But it's up to you to decide: are you going to leave that open to any sector in our community, or are you going to define that sector? And so you have that flexibility. I don't want to say you don't, but I think there should be a clear process that anyone could go to a website and find out that EDA has that process, not by happenstance. There should be, you should, at the end of the day, I hope the EDA has a true annual budget of some nature that you work towards that is consistent with achieving some priorities. And that may be one of the ones you have in there. So I don't want it to appear that my concerns are specific to this particular applicant. There may be all the merit in the world to do it. We're just about to talk to you about tourism. More restaurants will drive more folks in our community and hopefully benefit. So there is some value to additional eateries in our community. I'm just saying, look at it from different angles. I don't want to get hung up in paralysis either. That doesn't do us any good either. But having wide open criteria, because quite honestly, tomorrow, if 30 businesses call us and say, we want to come in front of your EDA and ask them for a loan interest loan, how do we tell them no? There is no structure or difference. Everyone has the right to come in and ask for any dollar amount from you today. I'm just structuring, saying, let's narrow that funnel a little bit, and then ultimately figure out, if you decide you want to leave it wide open for anyone, just narrow the scope. If not, if we get through the strategic planning process, maybe you'll have, I'm hoping that we leave the strategic planning market with some clear target markets that we're going to put our efforts into over the next few years. You know, some specific strategies that may be EDA strategies or board-oriented strategies or combined. You know, we're going to talk about the tourism angle. What other legs of the stool do we want right now? We've been primarily on new business recruitment. How about existing business retention and expansion? How about tourism and marketing and those angles? There are a lot of other avenues that we haven't really spent as much effort on. And so is that where we want to put our resources? And that's, our resources are Matthew's time and the money we budget, and your time and your resources. So I think we all want to get to a better end game. We're all here giving we're giving you time free, and we need your expertise to help us frame that equation. And admittedly, you're right. When we came to you, we had a clear path. I think I came a couple months ago and said, please understand there was a few things that came up in the past year that sort of derailed on that. We see extreme value in having a coordinated economic development plan. The board is committed to doing it with you, and we're close to getting to that table to do this together.
Can we expect a calendar maybe so we can look to the next possible 6, 8, 9 months about possible meetings with the board,
Right.
what to expect?
I think it's on
It is.
your agenda here. We're hoping to do that in June.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you recall the last meeting we discussed, we're going to, instead of having the multiple meetings, we're gonna have an all-day charrette style meeting, which will be scheduled for June, early July at the latest. So we're finalizing the facilitator now, and then that'll be put on your calendars at that point. So in the next, let's say the next 30 days, foreseeably you could be contacted by the facilitator to meet with them to start the process, and then leading towards a June meeting with the board of supervisors.
Can you provide us with some basic questions for us to contemplate before that facilitator calls us?
Sure.
So some of you, you recall, we went through that whole SWOT effort with you.
Correct.
And that data is going to be provided to them. So I think they're going to be looking at that from your perspective. I think they're going to look at, some of the strengths, but where are we? What do you see as been some of our challenges? What can we build on? When I say R in that sense, I'm talking about some of them maybe we don't have some structure, or we need some structure, we need better direction, and we may need to meet with the board more regularly to reaffirm some of those kinds of things. You're meeting with them without staff in the room, without the board in the room. Be as candid and frank with the facilitators as you can be. The board appoints each and every one of you based on your expertise. They value it. They want that brought into this process. And so we can certainly try to get some pre-questions for you, but I think they're really looking for you to be candid in this process.
Just want people to be prepared for a phone call versus, ooh, I didn't think about that, or I'll get back to you, or something, so they can have a efficient conversation. Any other questions on that? Okay.
Everybody good?
Yep, so we move to Matt.
Yep. So this is the highlight of the evening.
Popcorn, please.
So as we were talking about, obviously strategic planning and working together with the board, and different ways to focus our resources to capture the most bang for our buck. Tourism marketing is something that we've been discussing for a long time in the county. We've made some efforts over the years that have kind of, I would say, ups and downs, and some have floundered a little bit, and it's something that is important for us moving forward, and I wanted to come to you tonight to just discuss one of those possibilities that we're thinking of. So I see everybody is like angled and excited. So the without further ado.
So, Matt,
Yes.
why is it important to us?
So I think the important thing for tourism is it's a way for us to bring people into the county. We have assets here in the county. It's getting our name out there in the region is one of the big things. We've sort of, I don't want to say operated as isolationists, but we definitely are kind of our own little place. And I think we owe it to ourselves and our economic development efforts to get our name out there. And I think this
But
is
are we,
an
and
avenue.
that's one of my questions, are we trying, and it may be one,
Sure.
the other, or both? And by that, what I mean is, are we trying to market the things that are here, Hardywood, Licking Hole, those types of things for people to enjoy and experience? Or are we trying to market continued economic development and our assistance of the developers?
It's a little bit of both. So I think that
Okay.
tourism is the avenue to indirectly benefit the economic development. So by supporting local businesses, bringing people in, indirectly we are promoting economic development. And I think hopefully this will explain a little bit as we're going. And certainly as I'm going through, if you have questions, feel free to stop, talk over me, whatever you want to do. So again, this is going over, good slide. This is in West Creek, where obviously a lot of our stuff is focused. The last couple of years, we have made a lot of improvements in this county. When I got here 5 years ago, there was no economic development program. We've come a long way. Record-setting capital investment. In the last 5 years, we've seen $350 million of capital investment. Broke record last year with over $100 million of capital investment. That has not been seen in this county before. So this year, we're on track to possibly break last year's numbers. So record-setting year-over-year capital investment. We've had the highest employment growth percentage in the Commonwealth. That is a statistic that we're proud of. We've had almost 4,500 jobs created in the last 5 years. Again, we lead the Commonwealth in job growth percentage. Our schools also have climbed to the top of the region. Our scores are on par, if not better, than all of our surrounding localities. These are things that we don't do enough of to put out there, in my opinion. We won awards for government transparency and efficiency. And most importantly, we've come together as a community to support one another. So the time has come to tell our story. Let's show Goochland off. Let's help our local businesses by bringing customers to our streets. I think that's where the tourism marketing piece comes in. Prime example, Hardywood, 1,000 people there this weekend. I would bet maybe 5% of them lived here in the county.
So you're trying to differentiate between rooftops and bringing in?
A little bit of both. I think we need rooftops, but we also can achieve some of that by just getting people out here without necessarily having them live here, I guess.
It's more of a short pump type draw.
I think it's different than short pump. I think short pump is more just retail. I think we're bringing a different demographic coming to enjoy what Goochland County has to offer.
A reason to get off the highway.
There you go. Obviously, money spent in Goochland stays in Goochland. We do capture tax revenue. When those 1,000 people are buying, $5 beers a pop, we get some of that money back. $5.25 a beer.
The dairy might be
I drink the watered down stuff. So again, let's open the doors to our county. Licking Hole, another example. Despot Day, maybe this year hasn't been as successful, but in the years past, they've had people from as far as California flying out here on their beer releases. So you just never know who's coming to Goochland for these types of things. There you go. You never know who might be standing on the sideline. Jefferson Cup, thousands of people come to Richmond for that. It's one of the largest soccer tournaments in the country, and one of their prime facilities here in Goochland County. So how do we do this? Tourism and marketing. We have 35 miles of river in the county. That's a huge asset. Obviously, restaurants, possibly a New Mexican restaurant. On top of that, historical venues. One of the, as I'm talking about these assets, one of the challenges that we do have and have had in the past, a lot of our assets are private facilities. So putting together a list of assets that are open to the public is something that we'll be working on. But award-winning including breweries, wineries, and cideries. This is a map of the new West End trail that is being created by the different facilities here. Obviously, Courthouse Creek Cideries in the county, Kindred Spirits, Hardywood, Midnight, Licking Hole Creek, Elk Island Winery, Grey Haven Winery, Fine Creeks, and Powhatan, but we included them on here anyway. So these are the kind of efforts that are taking place outside of any efforts that we are part of. There used to be the 35-mile drive effort. And again, a lot of these things kind of kick up and then they just kind of fizzle out.
What was the results of that? I mean, it fizzled,
I think in most cases, for example, 35-mile drive, it was a pay-to-play type organization and not all the businesses were on board. I think, again, situations like this, these businesses have come together to create their own beer tour. But, you know, the chamber made an effort a while back in conjunction with, they basically put their resources behind 35-mile drive. And I think ultimately it just came down to, it wasn't successful. I guess that's the best I can say in this setting. So again, mentioned the Jefferson Cup, 45,000 annual attendees, $25 million annual economic impact, 33,000 room nights booked in the regional hotels, 1,436 teams represented by 36 states, and a $250 per attendee on food, gas, and shopping.
Is that the facility in West Point?
It is.
Yeah.
So the strikers utilize for the Jefferson Cup all of their fields. So West Creek, there's fields in Henrico. I believe they're going to be using Chesterfield's fields next year.
Okay.
But it is the largest draw for the Richmond region for booked rooms and hotels annually.
What is that? Is that in the fall?
It's twice a year. It's in the spring and the fall,
It's pretty soon.
obviously, and then much more. So how can we maximize our return on investment and get the most visibility for a dollar? One of the tools in this marketing tourism toolbox for consideration, and again, could be considered a little premature because we'll be talking about this in the strategic plan as well. Richmond Region Tourism. Notice the Hardywood beer, that's on the front page of their website. So the overview of RRT. RRT is the primary marketer for the Richmond region. Sports tourism, meeting tourism, tour operators, travel media, just leisure travel. It's a nonprofit organization and offers a comprehensive array of information services to assist the region hospitality industry in benefiting the powerful economic engine that is tourism.
how much were they engaged in either Hardywood, Licking Hole was cursor, right? I mean, how much of it's organic? Vice, anything that's they've been doing or anybody else is.
So certainly some of it is organic. As I get further in, I think you can see the reach they have as opposed to just sheer organic. Let me come back to that question in just a second. So the marketing, obviously, maintain and drive traffic to their website, which serves 1.2 million unique visitors a year as a travel inspiration site, and they represent the entire region online with customizable listings for attractions, dining, hotels, etc. Industry-specific publications, marketing collateral, digital content, and then state-of-the-art analytics to market ROI and identify new emerging markets. So marketing collateral that would have Houston County placement. Obviously, the Richmond Region Visitors Guide, 250,000 annual. Meeting Professionals Guide, 1,500 maps, 150,000 per every 1 to 1.5 years. Rack cards, attraction passes, beer trail maps, the website, and the IM Tourism Ambassador Workshop. So kind of what I'm getting at here is when you look at an investment per se in this, and then this equates to about 10 to 15 cents per placement is what this would equal to. Additional primary services.
What does that mean?
So for example, I could spend, let's say, $20,000 on a quarter-page ad in a magazine, or I could spend, I'll use Garden and Gun magazine as an example. A full-page color ad in Garden and Gun is $50,000 per placement. So this equals, from a marketing, let's say 10 cents per placement as opposed to $50,000 per placement. So granted, this is a little more specific in the audience, and it doesn't necessarily have the general reach like a magazine ad or a radio spot or a TV ad. This is more broad-based. and I'll touch again.
This is all internet-based, is that?
It's not. Part of it is internet-based. So there's both internet-based and actual marketing collateral. So again, Richmond Region Tourism represents the region of 40 different industry events that offer opportunities and collaborative opportunities as well as buyer-client. They develop new markets by leveraging the region's assets, strengthening the client referral and retention programs, and fostering new business opportunities developed through community-produced leads, and then provide customized services through custom proposals. So these are all the cities across the country that Richmond Region Tourism attends marketing and trade shows. So, for example, I'll go ahead and skip to the exciting part. The investment for RRT, we'll say, is $50,000 a year for engagement. Comparably, the Greater Richmond Partnership is $425,000 a year. So the same, I guess, visibility, if you will. GRP has about 35 to 40 national trade missions a year, about 25 international trade missions a year. So comparably, we're looking at about 40 events that Richmond Region Tourism goes to. Cities visited: Nashville, Baltimore, Omaha, Nebraska, Portland twice, Daytona Beach twice, Minneapolis, Orlando, Atlanta, Cleveland, San Diego, Chicago, Salt Lake City, Jacksonville, Las Vegas. So every one of these events, they would have a booth, and Goochland County would be represented.
This is to attract folks from those areas into Goochland?
It is to attract folks to the Richmond region. And so by joining, we would be getting visibility as part of the Richmond region. Right now, we have, most people I talk to don't know that we're part of the Richmond region. Like, where is Goochland? Like, we're part of Richmond.
Why New York or no Pennsylvania or Massachusetts? You know?
That I don't know.
They did just do Pittsburgh last year, so I'm not sure that made it onto the most recent list that they provided us.
Yeah.
So they could do rotating, so those are probably some of the.
This is based off their 2018 marketing calendar. So again, primary services, visitor services, community relations, quantifying an accurate annual visitor count, direct economic impact metrics, information resources and guidance to tourism-related businesses to help them attract visitors and capitalize on the economy. So the funding, the important stuff. So the current RRT footprint is Chesterfield, Hanover, Henrico, and New Kent, and the city of Richmond. Richmond Region Tourism's primary funding comes from a tax, transient lodging tax that hotel guests pay on lodging in those localities. And then Richmond Region Tourism receives 1.75% of that transient lodging tax in the region. And then additional partial funding is by the Greater Richmond Chamber as well as local private businesses and sponsors.
How was that going to explain a little bit about that tax? Actually, there's state authorities under that tax. Goochland was just approved to have the opportunity to levy should the board ever choose to tax, but the state code requires the lodging tax to be in major part dedicated towards tourism expenditures. And so that's how some of that, some of those other core jurisdictions on there are also funding partners in the Richmond Convention Center. So that some of the rest of their lodging tax goes to pay towards that debt.
Is that a regional governance entity then that has the right to?
And while we're making the assumption on what's coming in, like, what are you seeing as an occupancy rate on like, is it 100%? Is it 30%? There was a number in our packet that has something about what the pass-through was for.
We were talking about this last meeting, right, with the Marriott and.
Right, and so what was the, like, what are we assuming is going to be?
Like what revenue would be generated if we
There
had
was like
tax?
something on here, but yeah, there was like when I was reading through the minutes, there was a number in here, and I was just wondering how that number, how you guys arrived at that number.
I don't
Create an additional 175 a year in tax revenue. And
So
lodging
if,
tax.
based on the current footprint of the hotel, if we were to enact this tax, it would generate about $175,000 a year.
But assuming an occupancy rate of what? Like, if you're saying you're capturing that, like, so, do you understand my question?
So I would assume that would run RRT ran that probably based on average booking, maybe a 85%.
Okay, so that was based on previous.
I would say it's based on a net aggregate of existing facilities across the board.
Okay. Okay.
But I can find it out specifically.
And I was just curious.
Basic ballpark revenue was 175,000 a year,
That's a
assuming
70% occupancy.
70%. Okay. So currently, the county of Chesterfield, they're paying $1,070,000. Hanover's paying $219,000. Henrico, $2.8 million. City of Richmond, $1.6 million. New Kent is currently paying $10,000 a year. In 2019, that jumps to $50,000. So the total contributions from the government are $5.77 million.
And other than New Kent, all those amounts are being generated by that 1.75%, correct?
Yes. Granted, they have multiple hotels, so that's
Yeah.
but it is being generated. The revenue from that tax can only be applied for tourism.
Richmond Regional Tourism made a business decision this year to come out and approach all the jurisdictions in the Richmond Regional Planning District Commission area. But they changed their formula. That's why New Kent's is going to 50. They offered us, Louisa, Powhatan, Charles City, Town of Ashland, and then they revised New Kent's to join, so they would have the same footprint as the Richmond Regional Planning District. And so that's where the 50,000 came in as a small jurisdiction. Matt's going to share with you what they're proposing to phase that expenditure. But this is the first time that they even considered expanding the footprint. Some of the other logic that went into some of this consideration is, you've heard Matt say, we don't have much, and I always use the term presence. When people talk about Goochland, we don't get the presence that the folks that are in the partnership get. We don't even get the media presence because we're in the middle of two markets between Charlottesville and Richmond market. And so for us, it's what can we do to leverage the whole presence thing, and tourism also brings a different angle along with it. So it's creating a broader regional presence for ourselves in this market. And so they didn't even give the opportunity for this a year ago. So this is something we just approached jurisdictions with this past year. I've been a member of RT, both in my services in Kent County's administrator and in Hanover County. I sat on the board and saw that there is some real value to the jurisdictions that participate in this from a regional marketing perspective. It's also when our businesses, and there is some expectation that certain businesses like to do some marketing on their own. So this is not sort of a silver bullet approach. This is one way to do a marketing and tourism angle. This is the lowest cost regional presence opportunity that we've been able to evaluate.
These are annual.
Yes.
The board is actually appointed by the supervisors of the counties that are engaged.
Their memberships, the way they're proposing it is there's members from each of those boards. There's also members on RT boards from Retail Merchants Association. There's representatives of the hotel. There's an association of hotel owners sits on there. So it's a little more than just the district representatives. And they're offering the smaller jurisdictions that we're coming into a substantially different cost structure, a rotating membership on the board, and that's typically one of the elected officials of the jurisdictions.
How many now?
I think RT has like 18 members in total.
And do the retailers association, do they pay into this as well?
They do. This is what you're seeing.
It's just the
This
local,
is just
the
governmental.
government.
Okay.
It's no different than the Greater Richmond Partnership, where each locality pays in the $400,000. And then there's also a bulk of the funds come from the Dominions and Altrias in the private sector. So this again is an opportunity to be part of a regional group at a much lower price point. And again, I think the benefit here in looking at the tourism is not only is it getting us regional presence, but it does help, in fact, our businesses where Hardywood could be plastered on the side of an ad in Nashville or somewhere else. And again, those companies certainly are going to be doing their own marketing. The This just allows one additional avenue to get the word out there about Mutual. So expectations moving forward, obviously there'll be metrics tracking, annual reporting, visibility statistics, price replacement, which I mentioned, attendance at trade shows. That's another opportunity where I would be able to tag along to these trade shows and make sure that Mutual is being represented. And if you look at, typically if I were to go somewhere, it's going to be $5,000 to $7,000 by the time I pay for travel, get in. Again, this would be part of that money. Obviously, I still have to get there, but the trade show entry fee, if you will, has already been taken care of.
What they do, their trade shows are a little different. When you're out there trying to learn, man, it's a little different. What they do is they do all the pre-work ahead of time and schedule opportunities for their jurisdictions to meet with certain business sectors or people that are looking to do expansion or relocation. So you're actually going there with not only opportunity to do the handshaking of the booth, but you actually have appointments to meet with people that are looking to relocate to the county.
It's all centered on tourism. I've got a disjointed view, and I got to get something cleared up. So you go to these trade shows and you're talking to
There is a mix. There's the ones that are just going out trying to get the next conference.
okay,
That they come to the area and benefit.
which would
Or
apply to us specific.
there's residuals from those kind of things, but then there's the others that they're actually networking and engaging across business sectors. So they do cross sections of events. So of that calendar where they're going, some may have been more specifically trying to market the Richmond region for sports tourism. Some are marketing the Richmond region for business relocation. Some are marketing it for specifically to come to trade shows and those kind of things. So it is a mix.
We're not talking specific direct messaging to tourists necessarily, or classifying tourists and saying we're going from this sector, that sector. It's basically
It's a cross section.
okay. So it's getting something into the region, and we will benefit through. I don't know. And as long as you're in Richmond, take a trip out to Hardywood Road, that type of thing. Okay.
Okay. So again, what we're asking for, and this is the ramp up. So year one is a $20,000 investment in 2018. Then it ramps up to 50, which is what the buy-in is for these small jurisdictions. And again, that's evaluated annually.
Is it 20 now just because it's prorated for the year, rest of the year?
This would be on the July 1 next fiscal year.
I'm sorry.
Kind of. I think the only reason they're doing that is because New Kent has been a member at $10,000. They redid the structure, and even New Kent has to go, if they want to stay a member, has to go to 50. And I think they didn't want to sock them with the increase all at one time.
Okay.
And so they offered the same deal to, this is, if you're a Powhatan and wanted to join, it's the same deal.
Are you going to metrics, the others, what they've seen as a result of
That,
their
yeah,
investment?
especially you can.
I don't know that I have that statistic on here, but I can certainly get that to you. Again, a lot of this would be indirect benefit. There's reports that RRT has done that shows broad economic impact. I don't know if it's isolated per county, but I can certainly look into get as much information as I can on
I
that.
don't see how they take up the noise of what's going on, just natural expansion now anyway.
Right.
What we probably could share, Matthew, is they did give us New Kent's last year's annual report. Probably be some value to see.
That would be, and that would be probably the closest match. Because one of my concerns is we're still a new county with respect to services and things that benefit from this type of activity. Now we've got breweries, but we still don't have hotels, and that's coming. Hotels and restaurants, and so I think the New Kent one is a great way to kind of get a perspective here, because they're kind of similar to where we're at. We may have a little bit more businesses, but, and we might have a little bit more opportunity in the form of potential land for other businesses than they might, but I'm not really sure of that. So that would kind of be helpful. And then, what is your intention after 2019? What is it that you're asking?
So the intention would be a long-term commitment. We don't know what that, again, it's evaluated annually, so we don't know what the 2020 forecasted investment is. So I think this is the information of today is what the buy-in is for 2018.
Because that becomes difficult for the EDA to make a long-term commitment with limited resources.
Right.
Right, you're asking us to give away a shoe we might not actually have.
Is the commitment on an annual basis? You can back out anytime you want.
It is, and just to answer that question, the 50,000, I don't see that growing much more than cost of inflation beyond 19. So that goes up. And the thing I think the board's gonna have to take a hard look at, and they need to do it probably sooner than later, if they're going to take the authority to use that hotel tax, they probably should consider it before you get multiple hotels up and running. It's a lot harder to implement the tax later. You can be fundamentally opposed to tax, period, and just that's a different discussion. But if they're going to use it, those are funds that the state created those opportunities to be able to fund these kinds of things. So we wouldn't be relying on the EDA or any general funds to offset this investment in the long run. I think you need a couple years of experience to determine if this is really a valuable tool for you or not. I will tell you, Hanover was reevaluating their GRP membership, but Matthew, it's one of 4 jurisdictions in the state that's not part of a regional economic development entity, and we pay for that. I mean, we don't get the leads that we should be getting as a community.
Yeah, so VDP's new model is any lead that comes into the state automatically gets distributed to the regional partnerships as their process. We are one of 4 localities not part of a process or part of a regional partnership. So short of me calling on a weekly basis and bugging the hell out of them, like where's some leads, we don't get them. So, and granted, this doesn't necessarily solve that, and it's not the GRP, which is what the state considers our regional partnership. It still gets us on the map with those localities, and I think that goes a long way because we're just we're left to our own devices in Goochland, and it's at a certain point, again, it's kind of a beyond an uphill battle to get just name recognition with the region, and especially, when we're reaching out to people outside of Richmond, even Northern Virginia folks, like where exactly is Goochland again? Where does that's next to Charlottesville? Like, no, we're part of the Richmond region, and I think just having, and the RRT marketing isn't going to solve the problem, but I think it's one step getting us in the right direction for a relatively low cost of entry. Again, if you look at just other marketing opportunities, a magazine ad that I can run that's going to cost the same amount of money isn't necessarily, short of drawing a map and showing we're 32 miles to Richmond or 16, whatever the distance. I mean, this is a way to have that broadcast on a national stage, showing us as part of the region. And I think that, again, looking at a couple years, it would definitely take a few years to see results. And even the results that we do see are going to be hard to quantify. And I don't want to say it's a leap of faith, but you have to just, I guess, there will be data that can show that the money, where it's going. But as far as, until we have hotels that we can actually track how many rooms are being booked around these types of events, I can ask the strikers what kind of data, but they'll be the first to tell you that folks are coming to West Creek and they're going right back to Short Pump because Goochland just doesn't have the restaurants or even the gas station. I mean, for example, Wawa sold out of Gatorade the first day of the Jefferson Cup last year. Like, they got wiped out. So we do know that. So if there were those resources here, and as West Creek continues to develop, and if it takes, let's say, more of a mixed-use approach, and we start seeing more restaurants and breweries and grocery stores and gas stations, those are the kind of things that would benefit from these people showing up on the sidelines. Yeah, exactly. I'm going to be doing that with stickers on the bottles.
Now, the other question is what do we get if we hired someone for 50 grand? Do we get more reach? And so I always look at, why pay this group is there another way to accomplish or get more reach? Is there another way to skin the cat? For 50,000, by the time I hire someone with benefits, we could do some marketing, but then you got all the marketing collaterals on top of it. I'm not suggesting we're never going to do something other than RT. That's not what we're proposing. This is one angle to do a reach. And I think even at 50,000, what looks like a deal compared to what the other people are playing, some amount of that is to get the presence of being part of the read. They'll be able to come back and say, we had this many placements for you. Even all those jurisdictions, their annual indicators are completely driven by hotel rooms, percentage of occupancy in hotel rooms, and they track the total tax, not just the 175 each year. And RT, if you see their annual presentation, that's where they're driving a lot of the room nights and total spends and those kinds of things. Tourism itself, unless we're not a Williams where you can look at attendance at different kinds of venues, those kinds of things. It is the extra push to help the restaurants be successful. There is a cash dollar return on tourism, but it's incremental.
Well, you talked earlier in our previous conversation about support of existing businesses. That's basically what you're talking about here. Now, I think the last point you mentioned, Matt, that it gives us access to stuff otherwise we're not going to get access to. I think that's a totally missing point in the presentation, that you ought to get right on the presentation up front with the board of supervisors, because that's important, and that's not a lot of money for what we're talking about getting access to. So I wouldn't just make this about tourism, because we're an immature tourism county. We don't yet have enough to really go after that. So I think a combined purpose makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, the interesting thing, I'm excited for the strategic plan again. The conversation about marketing and presence is one that is extremely valuable to have in an economic development conversation. It's not as it relates to residential development, whereas, if you want to keep Goochland rural, more rooftops doesn't help you achieve such. But from an economic development basis, presence is huge. And the marketing from that standpoint. So there's a dichotomy of, we want to keep this a good secret as a county and we're wonderful, but you also want to make sure from an economic development standpoint you're on the map. And so how do you balance the two that are both important things for us, and how do we do that in concert? So I think hearing that dialogue amongst you and the boards facilitated is, I think, an important conversation we have today.
Has not yet been.
I primered the board on all this, but I told them we were coming here as an approach to see if there was a level of interest. We're not asking to make a decision of any kind before we went back to them. And so we're not having lined up.
So again, tonight was basically the first step to gauge interest. We would take it to the board next month in our 2-on-2s. We have monthly meetings with 2 members at a time, obviously, with the hopes to fund and adopt in July 1st, the new fiscal year. So again, this was just the first step in the process. No decisions is being asked of you tonight. We just wanted to make sure or see, hopefully, if there was interest from this group to have a further discussion.
So another question, does this tie into the state tourism office as well? Or is there a symbiosis or something that goes on with them?
There is a relationship, but they are two different entities.
Yep.
Yeah. But I mean, there should be at some level, there should be a strategic plan involving all these entities. I would know. The state should probably facilitate that.
They offer different things, and they do. There's clear lanes, if you will, of what the state tourism does and their marketing angles and programs they have versus what RFP does.
Yeah.
The state's obviously trying to do the whole Virginia for Lovers campaign. They do some grants and programs in communities throughout the state. They do some of the Main Street stuff.
Yeah. But there's another angle, because the film office used to be connected with the tourism, and they brought a lot of business films that we've done in Richmond, and it's something where it comes in and has a big impact and it goes away, you know, and I think to the extent that they're doing that in the future, you'd want to get Richmond on the map as at least a location to scout.
No, we use Lower Tuckahoe.
It is,
Was used, we've toured them through the old middle school before it's been renovated multiple times, jail on, River Road. I mean, they're in the county a good bit. And I'd say most of the recent filming has been done at Lower Tuckahoe, or Tuckahoe Plantation, excuse me. Yeah, the overhaul was in The Bachelor, if anybody caught that, so.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I missed it.
I DVR'd it, I'll send it to you.
Really?
We gotta call this for another film.
So they're already.
So yeah, we have a relationship with them, and again, it's the high school, the old middle school, high school is what was is on their radar, but certainly we have, I'd say once a month, we're getting a phone call, they're coming and scouting locations. So again, the more breweries and restaurants and stuff that we have that can support, because right now, the reality is that those folks, no different than the Jefferson Cup, they're coming here and they're going elsewhere to spend their money, so we really don't capture anything other than bodies in the county. So hopefully as time progresses, we'll get
So
more.
from a strategic standpoint, I'm just,
Thank you. I don't know what
I mean, you could be thinking with the board and with us, and we could be talking about, well, maybe the thing we need to do is concentrate on inns, bed and breakfast or something like that, sending those types of things. People have got a reason to come here and spend money here. So maybe we don't want a 17-story property, but we'd like to add something that would complement the center part of the county. I mean, you've got Eastern Penn, it's kind of industrial, economic generator, that type of thing. Maybe there are things that you want to encourage throughout the county to bring people in. And again, they leave Sunday
Hard
night.
stuff.
And you're on the right track, because we gotta figure out a way to capture the revenues, that's hopefully the return from this investment, so I think it's those kinds of programs. We've talked with the Historical Society about creating docents and actual programming that people would come out for. With sports tourism, we're actually being involved in really more leagues and tournament kind of discussions. And you saw the ones there, but they're actually talking to us about Leaks Mill now and in Rock Park coming further into the county. We're creating more amenities in our parks and rec systems, so we'll have 2 launches for kayaking and pull in and pull out. So I think all of those things sort of feed into the overall success strategy that this would help promote.
So may I ask, what do the rest of us think, since we're taking the temperature of presentation and interest?
Okay, personally, a lot of research to do.
Is there anything I can assist with that you're looking for information besides?
Numbers, organic versus, I want to look at structured RRT. I mean, to me, that sounds like a regional entity that takes taxpayers' money, and I'd like to know the accountability of that. That to me, and then other, I'll say, market functions that come out of it. But, so,
Thank you.
I'm in favor.
As we look at the numbers too, like you're saying, the tension between maintaining the rural feel of the county and also some economic development. We have a clear vision of like how we do, I mean, I think that, I personally think that absolutely can be accomplished to do both if things are put in a really small space for all the money that we want. We don't know, I mean, with the board of supervisors, I think that's a bigger conversation, obviously. But even with those numbers, how do you interpret those numbers as far as, right?
exactly, because, what's organic, what's driven by our current cycle, what's going to happen when the cycle turns down, there are a whole set of dynamics like that try and filter out the noise, filter out the other, let's say, curves.
So when you're talking about tracking organic, obviously that would apply, you can figure that out based on web traffic and stuff like that. How else would you quantify?
What metrics do they have? What metrics do the other counties have? How are they selling this from a standpoint, well, it works, just look.
Right.
The first one would be to take a look at New Kent, correct?
Probably
We have both their annual reports, we'll share them, and there's metrics in there. They're some of what I shared with you earlier, but we have, so we're glad to pass it along. I think you're asking a fair question. I mean, the structure, piece, we have the full report on our board membership and makeup and the voting structure, pass that along to you.
This was your favor, your opinion to the board.
I am recommending it to the board. I recognize our board has not been as active in some of these regional, entities before. I'm not sure how they're going to come down on it, to be honest with you. We owe them the same answers that you guys are asking. I think there is some amount of, I too would have liked to have done a strategic plan before we're having this conversation too. I can't see any way how tourism shouldn't come out of that process. I don't want to preempt something, but we're not going to have as comprehensive a program if it doesn't include tourism. Our marketing has been little at all, and so this is one way to pick that up in one giant leap for us. And so I think there's some value, but I too am very data driven. I think we need to really evaluate year after year, give it a few years, but really determine, is this the best use of our money? 50,000 from a staffing and marketing alone basis doesn't go very far. We can do a lot of different things and try it, but you won't. I'm also thinking about how do we sustain an effort. You've heard about some of these other programs that sort of came and went. Just when you don't stick just a little toe in, you're in, and so you want to figure out how you can really make sure you sustain it. I think something like the Hardywood, they expect some of this kind of stuff. The jurisdictions they're in also are doing some of this in support of their success, but they do their own. But I think they should own some of that.
So when you say after a few years, clearly we're looking into 18 and 19. How many years do you give it before you kind of make a decision or?
I would say, just from my perspective, until the hotel is up and operational, we have other assets that we could track, I guess, to be able to see. That's the only real way we're gonna be able to see, I think, or really quantify. I mean, I think by year 3, we'll have something we can look at and say, yes, this is working.
Okay.
If we need to give another year or 2, no, it's not working.
Well, part of the slide at the very beginning, you're talking about we're achieving record capital expenditure by corporations, by entities, predominantly all large entities, right? There's not that much small business coming into the county. There's not much opportunity for small business in some case, right?
Right.
So we're already setting record capital expenditures. Is the goal to?
The goal is to sustain that.
Is it
Capital
not
investment.
sustainable through the existing environment?
It's a good question. Is it not?
What-
If we have an opportunity to help sustain it by doing this, then I think that's money well spent.
Is it gonna sustain our exponential, what type of linear result are we seeing, or non-linear result are we seeing now?
Well, but let me throw something out. What it might do is give us access to a broader range of types of economic development. Right now, we're getting a lot of residential, and a lot of it's that residential stuff going on the east with some other things filled in that are big chunks, like sheltering arms, the hotel, so on and so forth, right? But after those came through, and I'm sure there's more on the drawing board, but I think it can broaden that.
So our capital investment numbers don't take residential into account.
Right.
It's
Okay,
only
okay,
on
I'm
only
sorry.
on commercial
I'm sorry.
investment.
But I thought the picture was the hotels or the apartments.
There may have been a picture.
Okay, I'm
Apartments are considered commercial for whatever reason.
Okay.
But no, the numbers that we generate when I report on capital investment is 100% based on commercial entities. And a bulk of that is larger, whether it be Hardywood or In the case last year, there was 30 million of the 107 was the Bristol apartment project. So there is, I guess, in that sense, is partial residential, but it's also the capital ones expanding, the CarMaxes, the Luckstones, the,
What's the footprint of Capital One North right now? Approximately, well,
I don't even know where I would guess on
Couple
that.
hundred
I mean,
million?
it's a couple million square feet.
Yeah, you could have a white elephant that actually is not as valuable as you think it is.
right.
Yeah,
Because the
I
whole
was-
transition, what's changing, what's going on.
You might be looking
I'd
at
say there's
multiple tenants.
10 million square feet plus of space out there.
At $100,
Say $140 a square foot, $150 a square foot.
I think in some ways, this also diversifies the economy to a certain extent. So if we come out and say agritourism is going to be one of the tourism strategies, that also incentivizes some people to open up their farms and aren't currently doing that. It incentivizes the farm to table kind of things that some happen in Halifax now, there's been some taken home. These other non-traditional kinds of businesses that aren't as visible today, some pop up at farmers market kind of stuff, but there are a lot of offshoot business if you create routes and if you create and drive the need to them, it may create some more of those opportunities for us. So I think it, in some ways, should diversify the opportunities for tourism. It does bring the people into your community that may otherwise have not come here. I can't tell you how many times people, and I didn't, I'm going to admit, before I came to Goochland, I didn't know Lincoln Homes existed. And I had, the day I got my job announcement was in the paper, a guy from Northern Virginia called me and said, I can't wait to come visit you in Goochland County and go to Lincoln Home with you because it's my favorite tour in the state. I didn't know where it was. These are people that are coming in that are ambassadors. Every time someone walks into Goochland County, their perception of what we're doing, this guy owns a marketing firm. You know, they're thinking, you know, if I'm going to, our hope is we plant a lot of seeds for future expansion, growth, and development through tourism. I think there's some opportunities that we're missing out on. I know we're about to make a major push on agricultural businesses in our community. We're creating an ag center at Central High School. And we're trying to create a continuum of agricultural support for our community. Tourism and marketing goes a long way to help their success from that front too. Maybe not the individual farmer that's just doing a crop and selling a crop, but those that have that interest in sort of that agri-marketing side of it, that this would be a benefit.
Yeah, I think one of the, as cliche as it sounds, but the bigger takeaways is you never know who's on the sideline. And I think that's something, I mean, Eric and Patrick from Hardywood, they'll tell you they didn't know much about Goochland, and they were just randomly looking at sites, and they happened to go to West Creek, and they said, that's it. Like, this is where we want to be once they saw that site. And that's just, that was a $28 million project because they're just decided to come out to Goochland that day. So I think you never know who is on the sidelines, and the more we do to promote Goochland, I think it just increases our chances. And to your point, yeah, we've had good years, and you can say that's because of what we've been doing. You can say it's the economy's been good. I mean, but it's hard to quantify, I think. Is that going to continue to happen? We don't know. I mean, we don't know what tomorrow brings.
Absolutely.
So I think the more we do to help our chances, the better off we'll be.
Well, but you're also jumping in at a point in time where everybody else is running out of land to do it. And so, you know, if there was ever a good time and get your highest returns going forward now, not, you know, 15 years ago, might not have been
Right.
Very good.
And of course, the yield curve's flat.
Okay, thank you. Matthew, good presentation, thank you. Other business?
Mr. Chairman, just as a point of order, on April 25th, our friends at Venture Forum RVA are having their, it's not in Goochland again this year. It's actually at the facility, the Redskins Training Center. I'm going to go to it on my own just because it is about startups. And I don't know if you're going to be there at all, but Rick, I'll be down there. So just as a point of order.
Thank you.
We knew why they, ever since, I mean, Cap One was what, 3 years ago already?
3 years ago.
2 or 3.
Why they haven't been back to Cap One?
The answer I've gotten from
underneath
Anyway, it has been that these other facilities are opening their doors to us and they just wanted to do it. And they also wanted to move around a little bit.
Right.
And she said, we'll be back. So,
It used to be a Capital One every year, wasn't it?
yes, it was.
It was a good venue.
Great.
It's a great room.
Phenomenal place.
The
Breakouts.
city EDA is probably paying them to come there.
Absolutely. And, question, if I may, the COPN,
It has not been approved by the state. It has been recommended for approval by staff. So I don't know where it stands as of today. We don't have an official word.
so,
It's coming down to the commissioner. I guess it's on the commissioner's desk. So, but staff did overturn their original recommendation for denial.
yes.
So,
Okay. Any other business questions?
Matt, any update on our conversation from Midpoint last meeting?
there has been no update. I reached out to the prospect again and have not received any follow-up. So,
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Meeting adjourned? Oh, sorry, I thought.
Couldn't really think about it.